Hi everyone. We have today here from LaVision Schröer, Dr. Uwe Schröer, going to tell us about the ultramicroscope, which is the light sheet microscope that mainly people use for imaging of clear tissues. So Uwe, can you please tell us a little bit more about your system? So in general, what is it doing and how we can use it for what kind of purposes?
Yes, for sure, I'd like to. So about the microscope, it is a light sheet microscope which is designed for imaging clear and large images, samples. Let's say, for instance, you have a sample at the size of a mouse brain or a mouse embryo. This suits perfect to this kind of system. The system itself illuminates the sample from underneath here, from the left and the right side. You have a very homogeneous illumination of the sample. And then we just move the sample through the light sheet, and the detection path is acquiring images on top. The cool thing about the system is that we have here a zoom body. So if you have a large sample, you can have an overview of your sample, and then you find your region of interest, and you just turn this knob, and you're directly into the region of interest with a cellular resolution. And so that is the nice thing. And if it comes to clearing samples, you can use all the different clearing protocols which are available by now, and also the organic clearing protocols.
Okay. Can you please just make that no one enters, opens the door? Just maybe stay outside. Okay. Right?
Everything good? If possible, you can just speak a little bit louder.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we can use this microscope to image different clearing technologies. So that's cool. So different samples, mouse organs, and so on. So can you tell us how easy to operate? So if someone is not familiar with fluorescent microscopy, so what are the major technical aspects they have to learn to be able to operate this microscope?
So if it comes to operating the system, that is pretty simple and pretty straightforward. So we have here, for instance, inside a kind of sample holder where you can place your sample tube. And then you just switch on the laser, you place the sample back into the imaging solution here, and then you can see directly if your sample is illuminated by the laser light. And if that is the case, you just switch the objective lens and front position, and you can focus down to your sample. You do not have to consider certain exposure times and illumination modalities. It is just switching on, focusing, and going for a stack. So that is pretty easy, and you can just mount nearly any kind of sample to it because it's open from the top and easy to access.
Okay. And if someone wants to buy a light sheet microscope for tissue clearing, what do you think the advantages of this system compared to others in the market?
So the big advantage is that you can go really for all the different cleaning protocols. There are some protocols out which use organic solvents. This system can handle these protocols. Further, it is very easy to learn. Normally we do a training, and after half a day the user can run it and can operate it on its own. And the other good thing is about that it is flexible. You can have a zoom body there in, you can go for an infinity corrected optics setup, so you can have all the different imaging modalities with one setup. So that is compact, easy, and just straightforward.
Okay, cool. And questions. So can you maybe also tell a little bit more technical parts, like the laser options, magnifications options, what kind of objectives, what kind of dipping? As far as I understood, for imaging in organic solvents, the objectives have special covers that are designed, and that also provides a good working distance, right? So what are these, the options to image different fluorophores and different magnifications?
Yeah, if it comes to imaging different fluorophores and different samples, if it's about large samples, you need really the long excitation wavelengths. So we have, for instance, the option to go for white light laser or for single laser diodes. And we recommend to go to the far red. Something like a secondary labeled with Alexa 647 or even higher would be suitable for this one. And the system can be equipped with this kind of lasers. Further on, the detection path is a very crucial thing because the objective lenses have to be designed for imaging with a light sheet system. So we have here on the one hand the detection path, which is based on the zoom body. In that case, you will have a dipping cap in front of the objective lens so that the objective lens can dive into the liquid. On the other hand, there is the infinity corrected optic setup, where you can mount any certain company objective lens to this kind of setup. You can go for any long working distance, which is fine with the imaging solution which is inside there. And then you can have even subcellular resolution. So that is a nice thing, that you can have the different modalities from overview to very high resolution. However, you should consider that you need a long working distance and a high NA objective lens, which is not an easy thing. And so we have also designed certain objective lenses which are really suited for this kind of imaging. And then we just have our 6 light sheets in total for a more homogeneous illumination of a large field of view. So that is pretty much, and it's just as easy as it sounds.
Okay, cool. So I know that many people use this microscope for a disco line of clearing, mostly organic solvents. And there's a lot of objective options for that, dipping caps, and there are different solvents. So some of them might be a little bit more toxic than the others. What do you think if people are concerned about toxicity of some of the solutions that you use in clearing? So what would you suggest them to do?
Yeah, if it really comes to the clearing, there are so many different protocols out. It's not that easy to say. It's always like this, that there are some clearing protocols out which are not that toxic, but then very often the clearing result is also a little bit impaired. So if you want to have really perfectly cleared samples, the organic solvents are a pretty good way to go. And then we have, for instance, the BAP or DVE or DISCO protocols. And if we have, for instance, users running their systems with BAP or with any kind of these organic solvents, they have normally a point sorption, so a fume hood next to a funnel next to the system. This is absolutely nice and works pretty well.
Okay, so that's something like a fume sucker here that eliminates the coming molecules, let's say.
That one would then be connected to the fume hoods and to the air ducts of the entire building, and then it's fine.
Cool. And can you also tell about the software? Because usually when it comes to microscopes, the softwares are some kind of bottlenecks. First, it's not easy to learn. There's millions of buttons. Second, usually they crash, they stop. So how the acquisition works with this software? And maybe related to that, how is the data handling? How is it saved? And what are the solutions there?
Yeah, data handling is really a certain point about light sheet imaging, because you can easily acquire several terabytes of data with this kind of setup. So what we recommend is to keep the stack as small as needed, and then you will end up at several hundred gigabytes depending on the sample size. What is, I think, most useful is to acquire data as a TIFF OME file or as a TIFF file, because then it is compatible with all the other different softwares which are available on the market for 3D rendering. So data handling, you have to be aware that you will have to deal with several gigabytes or hundreds of gigabytes of data. That is for sure, and that has to be considered. Further on, we just the acquired data are directly saved at the hard drive. So if there is a kind of let's say power shut off or whatever within the building, doesn't matter, the data are already saved. And then you have to process the data, and data processing is not easy, that's for sure. You can do some deconvolution, restoration, data restoration, and that takes quite a long time. So you have to consider first sample clearing, imaging, and data handling. So these are the 3 certain points, or the 3 crucial points about light sheet imaging.
Okay, cool. Okay. So, any other things you want to tell about the microscope? Maybe also a little bit about what is coming next in the ultramicroscopy. So, what are the updates you think you will add in terms of improvements?
Yeah, so there is a lot of things we want to do, and there's a lot of different things one can realize. What we would like to do is, as a next step, we would like to improve the detection path. to really have a high NA detection path for a good resolution on a large field of view. So combining a large field of view with a high NA, that is the next challenge for us to get ahead with. And then we will see there are some nice new detectors out to implement, and also to see what would be from the user side needed and what recommended. Then we implement also these feedbacks into our new development.
Okay.